Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Our Stories, His Glory. I got a special guest today. I've been waiting to get Carol Davis on here for quite some time. You know her from the Light FM 106.9 up there in Asheville, and she's moved around on me, but I think she's settled in the mornings now. Carol, before I tell them a little bit about you, I'm going to let you tell everybody hello today.
Thank you so much for having me, Rusty. What an honor. And thank you for taking the time out today. I love what you do and how you point people to Jesus. And thank you so much for having me.
Well, I would say ditto. I love how you do that. You have this big audience. You have this sense of humor. You have this quick wit. You have a lot of qualities that people really enjoy that you don't even know about. But one thing that I truly admire you for is that you start at 5:30 in the morning.
So, lots of coffee, Rusty, lots of coffee.
Okay, we're going to get to that in a minute because we're going to have a little fun. For those folks that don't know Carol, and by the way, if you're watching this, even if you're not watching live, chat in and leave some chats in the comments for Carol. She'd love to hear them. This is going to be posted on her page eventually. And if you're not already listening to the Light FM 106.9, obviously it's 106.9, but you can get Carol, one of the things that I've done is I got the Light FM app. That's the greatest thing ever because I can take it everywhere I go with me. And actually I can pick and choose what I want to listen to sometimes. Like if a podcast or something, you know, that's where I listen. Yeah. Does it take away my man card that I listen to the Girl Talk podcast?
Absolutely not. And you're not alone. We have a lot of guys confess to that. So you're good.
And probably a lot of guys that don't confess to that
probably
listen, but don't admit it because there's good stuff. And I'll admit that females are drawn to it because y'all do the Girl Talk, but there's some really good stuff. And I've got some information on you because I've listened to some of that. And I encourage people, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but you've been 20 years or so as a radio host and creative director and former director of program promotion, social media coordinator, blogger. You're a guest speaker all over the place. How do you find time to do all
this? Well, God just opens up opportunities. And years ago when I started doing this, I said, Lord, if you want me to go someplace and you open up the door for me to do it, I'll walk through it. So that's kind of how it all began. Feel very blessed to have been at the Light FM for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years coming up this next spring. So been there for 20 years, but actually did country radio, some smaller Christian radio stations throughout the years. So started radio, I guess now back in 1993. So it's been a hot minute or two.
now, don't be giving away your age. I'm able to do that. I'm 57. I graduated high school in 82, but guys don't care. We don't care. I'm just glad to still be alive.
Well,
I'm proud to be
feel that same way too. I feel that same way too. I just actually celebrated a big birthday. And so I turned the big 50.
Oh, you did? Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome to that. You're getting close to the speed limit. I've exceeded it. I've exceeded it in certain zones when they jacked it up to 65 to 70 in some places. So I've still got a ways to go.
I may have reached the speed limit in age, but I think I'm still traveling at about 35 maybe.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to say that's a good thing. First of all, so you've over the years, and we've listened to you, your banter back and forth with your co-host is sometimes classic. And then, but there's sometimes when you have to do this by yourself. So right now you're by yourself weekday mornings at 5:30, and you probably think, am I the only person awake? But you're not. There's other people awake. What do you prefer? What's the difference between being by yourself, sitting there and coming up with stuff to talk about, and having that other person? And what's the pros and cons of both?
Well, I think it's a totally different environment when you have somebody to bounce ideas off. They can say, you probably shouldn't say that on the radio. When you're solo, nobody can stop you, but the banter I love doing team shows. But before I did team shows, I was solo for years before that. So I'm kind of used to both, but I prefer a team show, but I don't mind it because in the solo world, when you're just a solo host, you can play off the listener and that helps you to develop relationships and have
Yeah.
conversations that way too. So there are interesting dynamics to both. I don't know that I prefer one over the other. For those who have been brave enough to work with me, I'm so grateful, but I can take a toll after a while.
Okay, so I want to go now, because one of the things that anybody that's listened to you for more than 10 minutes knows that one of the things that probably keeps you going is your sense of humor. You've learned to not, well, we all take life serious, but you've learned to see the humor in things. I want to I think when you don't know a whole lot about me, I know more about you because you're just transparent. You just throw it out there every day, and we hear your private and personal life and all your likes and dislikes. So I'm going to go with some choices here.
Okay.
On some things, and you have to pick. The rule is you have to pick one or the other. You can't say,
All right.
I love them both.
Okay.
You got to pick one or the other. And then I'll tell you what my, just for listeners, I'll tell them what my preference is this. Okay.
All right.
For a food, crab legs or steak?
Crab legs.
Okay. I'm going to go steak. And in fact, I want to say grilled chicken, but I didn't give you that choice. Okay. All right.
Okay.
But you don't have anything against steak. You just prefer crab legs.
I think it's because I don't get to eat crab legs as much. So
there you go.
Yeah.
It's a special delicacy.
Yeah.
Okay. TV show. I Love Lucy or Seinfeld?
No brainer. I Love Lucy all the way.
Seinfeld.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I know it's not rated G all the time. But back in the 90s, I just, and then my wife she's going to kill me because her favorite of all time is I Love Lucy. Well, I got to tell you, my favorite scene in the history of TV is the chocolate and the conveyor belt. So I'm sure you would watch that over and over, right?
Yes, still to this day.
How is that still funny? It's even more funny each time I see it.
I know, right?
Crank it up. They're doing so good. Let's give them more. All right, this is going to be a toughie.
All right.
80s music or country music?
Ooh. Wow. I'd have to go probably 80s.
I'm with you on that. Not that I have anything against country. That's a tough one, but wow, the fabulous 80s. We had it, didn't we?
Absolutely.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee, 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 coffee.
Tell us how you really feel. Okay, so I've got to put an asterisk on mine here because before January of 2021, it's a no-brainer for me. It's tea. But I learned that drinking coffee in extreme moderation can actually help your long-term memory and things like that. And you drink too much, it's gonna be a problem. And I started, and with the right creamer, I got to have the International Delight chocolate and caramel to go with it. I now prefer coffee as of January of 21. So I'm with you on that. Plus tea has caffeine in it, and I'm careful about caffeine. I can only have a little bit of caffeine a day. It has to be in the morning. It has to be the coffee now. So I'm with you on that one. Okay. We both love breakfast food.
Okay.
How do you like your eggs? Scrambled or boiled eggs? Or sunny side up? I'll give you 3.
No, scrambled all the way.
Yes, I'm with you on that one. Grits or hash browns?
Ooh. Hash browns.
I'm going grits.
No.
And it's not, I think I just get more exposed to grits more often. and I like a certain combination. Got to have the butter. I know exactly how to make them. And by the way, I wouldn't turn down hash browns. This one is going to be maybe a no-brainer for you. Bacon or liver mush?
Liver mush.
Are you kidding me? That's great. I thought for sure you would say, like, I've never heard of liver mush.
Oh my word. I grew up in the South, Rusty. What you talking about?
I know.
Hunter's liver mush from Marion, North Carolina. What are you talking about?
Max and Jenkins liver mush from Cleveland County.
I know.
I think it's the best breakfast food ever invented.
Agreed.
But there are people that will vomit just hearing the word. That if I even say liver mush, they go into this thing, and Northerners say scrapple and stuff like that, but it's not. It's liver mush. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, all the way.
Okay, so we don't want to bog down too much, but man, we could go back to that one. Liver mush omelet, by the way, is my favorite
Ooh,
combination. Cats or dogs?
dogs,
Amen, sister. We've
dogs.
got a dog. I think cat. I don't see if anybody. I think cats are a little sneaky, and dogs are just so loving. They just, yeah, they don't care. They're so unconditional. I think cats have an agenda,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
cat lovers are really going to get on me about that and turn my little show off. Okay, so when you're exercising, do you prefer jogging outside or on a treadmill?
Well, I'll tell you this. This is a hard one for me. I prefer jogging on the treadmill only because I've developed asthma later in life, so I can
Mm-hmm.
control the environment a little bit. Now, I'd love to be outside, but oftentimes the air quality is just not good enough where I can run outside. So treadmill is probably where I hang out most of the time.
I'm going with you on that because you don't get hit by cars when you're
That
on the
is
treadmill.
true.
And my wife will come out. We have a little building, we call it the barn out there, and I'm on the treadmill, and she goes, "Did you make it? Did you get where you were going?" She makes so much fun. She's like, "Do you realize you've never moved in 35 minutes there?" And I go,
Yeah,
"I've moved. I've just hadn't gone anywhere. And plus,
that's right.
I can watch Netflix. I can listen to podcasts. You can listen to podcasts when you're, but you can't watch stuff. But I can on an elliptical and a treadmill, and I get caught up on my little YouTube videos and sermons that I watch other pastors and stuff.
There you
So I'm
go.
with you on that. Okay, last one here.
All right.
Which would you prefer, to stay up late or get up early?
After doing mornings for so long, I get up early. Even when I'm not on the radio, I still get up early,
You
like
prefer
on the
that?
weekends. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I get more done. I don't know that there's necessarily any evidence to back that up, but if I get up early, I feel like I get more done. And the older I get, the more I like to go to bed early. So, but I have a 14-year-old who does not like for me to go to bed early. So,
Okay. Wow. Because you're just taking, we're of the same generation. I would have answered very differently 10 years
yeah. Oh,
ago.
yeah. Yeah.
But now I kind of prefer getting in the bed. I don't always go to sleep right away.
Right.
I'm kind of a Netflix watcher thing, and I hate to admit all this, but you know, but I do my main devotion at night. My
Oh, yeah.
mind, yeah, my mind really works better at night. Most of the
Right.
blogging I do and writing is at night. I just get more in the morning. It takes me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily like getting up early, but with my new schedule of teaching, I get up early, but not near as early as you. So how early do you have to get up to start a show at 5:30?
I get up at 4 a.m. So,
I've always hated getting up when it's
yeah, there's not a lot of people up at 4 a.m. It takes a special breed to do that.
So you do that 5:30, and by the way, your answers will not be held against you in the court of law.
That's good to know.
You can change your answers at any time if you decide, but I'm so proud of you for living much. I
Thank you.
can't tell you. So let's go back to you being on the radio now, and by the way, for people that hear you all the time, this is Carol Davis's face. And she admits that she doesn't really like getting her picture taken, and she, the Amish don't let anybody a lot of times get their picture taken. But I want to go to that story that you told on your podcast about you were dragging getting your picture taken from way back because somebody took one accidentally. Tell us about that, and then how you eventually got past
it. Yeah. So with doing radio, every once in a while we have to have new updated pictures for our employee, goings on and things like that for the website and stuff like that. And I've always hated having my picture taken. In fact, some of my best friends are photographers, and every time I say this, they like cringe, but I really was dreading this one particular time of getting my picture taken. And I was spending some time with the Lord, and I just felt him in the quietness of my heart saying, what's that all about? Like, let's get to the bottom of this. And I started thinking about it, and I was actually doing a creative writing exercise where I wrote about something that a character wished to get rid of. And the Lord just kind of lovingly took me back to this one place. It happened probably 25 years ago. I was on a vacation with a group, and there was a picture that was taken of me that was less than flattering. And the person that took it, I trusted. And we went into dinner that night to have dinner together. And when I entered the room, there were people sniggering and laughing, and punching each other. And I knew that that picture had been shared around the room. And it really kind of shocked me. And God just kind of said to me, how long are you going to let that continue to fester and continue? When are you going to give that to me? And so I had this whole moment with the Lord about dealing with struggles and wounds from our past that we kind of let dictate our future,
Sure.
And so God just really dealt with me in that moment. And I can tell you, I still don't love having my picture taken.
Well, this is a lovely picture of you on the screen, by the way.
Thank you. My friends who are photographers took that picture for me, so they will appreciate that greatly. But it just has been one of those things. It's not a vain thing. It's not one of those things. It's just that I was wounded and I'd never taken the time to think about it or deal with the pain that came from that. And it had haunted me, 25 years later. And so I'm really thankful that the Lord so lovingly, when we're ready, kind of takes us to those moments and says, okay, let's deal with this right here. So
okay. And so that's a great point for people who not just don't want their picture taken, but wounds from the past. I've heard people say, like, you know what, that happened so long ago, you're the only person still thinking about that. Nobody else even thinks about that anymore. And you're letting it eat you alive, and everybody else has completely forgotten it. Wow, that really meant a lot to me.
You know why I think that is too, Rusty? And just I was talking with a friend about this not too long ago, and she was telling me about a struggle that she was having. And God brought me to mind a message I heard Chip Ingram preach years ago. And he said, basically, a lot of times what we deal with, think of your life as like an iceberg. And the iceberg, the struggle that you're having is the part that you see above the water. And so you deal with that part. But really what you need to be dealing with is what's under the water.
Yeah.
And so most of our struggles, I think we attack on a very basic level. We try to change our behavior, but that doesn't work because we refuse to look at what's underneath that hurt and what's underneath that struggle. And when we do that, I think we can really get healing and we can really find freedom. But as long as we just deal with what's on the surface, we continue to stay in that bondage and stay in that struggle. And so that's been a real lesson to me that God's been teaching me, that oftentimes what I'm trying to deal with is just what I see. And he wants me to deal with what's underneath, what really is at the root of that.
And we're not stopping right now, but if we did, we would already have, boom, our sermon for the week. I mean, that's fantastic. So another question, and again, this came from some of the struggles that you're transparent. And by the way, we all appreciate transparency because we can relate. Like, wow. And Trisha Kelly, who I've had on a couple of times, I'll say, Trisha, isn't life perfect for some people who you work at a Christian radio station? Your life has to be perfect. And she just dies laughing. She goes, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, what you do and what she does too, and whatever, is you guys open up, and the rest of us who hear that say, wow, if they're having to deal with that, then I can deal with, I don't feel guilty about having to deal with what I'm dealing with, and there's hope and encouragement. So one of the things that you have opened up about that you struggled with in the past and that you're dealing with, you're much better on now, but I think is an issue for all of us, is trying to be people pleasers, trying to make sure that people approve, that we're pleasing everybody around us. Tell me about that and how you moved through that.
Well, that is still a struggle. That's a temptation and something that the enemy works on me with, because I think in this social media age that we live in, we all want to get the thumbs up and the hearts, that's all become a part of our culture.
That's at the Olympics, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's all they
right.
Talk about. Yeah.
We all want that triggers some dopamine in our brain that makes us feel loved and appreciated. And we all want that to some extent. But, I think God just has been, the older I get, the more that I realize that life is less about my accomplishments and more about who I am becoming. And God is less worried about what I accomplish, what I think I accomplished for the kingdom, and more about me and who I'm becoming. And all that stuff comes afterwards. But I got to find my worth and my value in my relationship with him and who he says I am. And, part of that is just becoming or happen because I've struggled with it for so long,
Yeah.
and made it, because I mean, obviously, if you're a people pleaser, radio is not the business for you, because you get ratings every so often. People love you one time and they hate you the next,
Yeah.
So that's not really where you want to hang out. But I have had to realize through the years, not everybody's going to like me, and that's okay. Not everybody's going to love me, and that is okay, because Jesus loves me. Jesus paid the ultimate price for me. And that's where I gotta live, instead of looking at that person and say, do they like me today? Did I get enough shares? Did I do all that? Because all that stuff will pass away, but who I'm becoming is what Christ is developing in my heart and life. And that's got to be where I plant my feet. All that other stuff is shifting sand and will end me up on my face if I stay there long enough.
Wow, you're 2 for 2 on delivering sermons today. So
Thank you.
So I can relate, because for over 30 years, 33 years, I was a college baseball coach, and most of the 32 of them, I was the head college baseball coach who wrote out the lineup. And with 35 people on the team, and you write out a lineup with 9 people in it, there's potential somebody on that team or their parents can't stand you, no matter what you do. So I had to get past people pleasing for a long time, but I think you're right that we all want affirmation, confirmation. We want people to say you're doing a good job, but yet ultimately what you're saying is we need to keep our eye. That's horizontal. We need to be looking vertical for our, and Paul says it in Scripture about exactly who we need to be pleasing. So
sure.
One of the things that kind of goes along with that is that you are a single parent, and your daughter, Ella, you mentioned she's 14 years old. And you say in your podcast, you never, of course, growing up, nobody ever dreams. None of us can picture what our life was going to be. Mine didn't turn out the way, and it's not negative, but it just never turns out the way we expect.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, and how you've grown through that, how you faced that. Just give us some encouragement on that.
Yeah, well, I don't think when you're in elementary school and you're writing Carol plus whoever that little boy is that you like, you never write out, you practice writing their last name with your name by it. You always have a dream of what that will be like. Nobody ever writes out, you know what, I think I'll grow up one day and be a single parent. Nobody writes that.
Yeah.
And, I am sad to say that a lot of times probably that before my life kind of fell apart, that I probably judged people who had gone through that. I have tremendous compassion for people who are walking through that. And honestly, God has opened up that area of ministry for me to a lot of people, just to be able to one-on-one share my story. But when life kind of fell apart, and I find myself as a single parent, I decided that I had a choice. I could either cling to everything that I had learned about God and who he was, or I could forsake my faith. Like, this is the greatest truth I've ever heard in my life, or it's the biggest lie I've ever fallen for. Which am I going to believe? And I tell a lot of people, before my life fell apart and I became a single parent, I had an accessory faith. It was a very nice thing to have in addition to my very nice life. After my life fell apart, I had a necessity faith where there were days where I did not think I could take one breath without breathing the name of Jesus.
Wow.
Now, would I wish that on anybody? Absolutely not. But I know Jesus in a way that I could not have known him had I not gone through that. And I think the Bible speaks clearly of that, of being able to look back on your past and on your struggles and to be able to be thankful for them. Although I wouldn't wish them on anything, I know Jesus at another level that I never would have known him had I not gone through that. And so I've learned, I still continue to learn and grow. I mean, as a parent of a 14-year-old, I'm learning every day how much I don't know. But even in that, in my relationship with her, to apologize when I make a mistake, to say I'm sorry, to mess up. My job's not to be a perfect parent.
Right.
I was teaching her, it was interesting because I was teaching her to roller skate. Now, I don't roller skate, Rusty. Can I just be honest? I don't. If God would have meant for me to be on wheels, he'd have attached them to my feet when I was born. But I am not a good roller skater. But a couple of years ago, she wanted roller skates for her birthday. I bought them. We got out in the driveway and we were we were working with them, and I realized in that moment, God kind of whispered to my heart, and he said, your job's not to teach her how to roller skate. Your job is to teach her how to fall. And
Wow.
that is so true in
Wow.
life. Like, my job is not to be a perfect parent and to try to live perfectly in front of her, because there was only one perfect person, and his name was Jesus. My job is to teach her that when you do fall, where do you run? When you do fall, how do you get back up? When you do fall, what are the truths that you're going to have to anchor your life to and hold close with everything you got? That's my job, is to teach her how to fall. And so God's been teaching me that for a long time, and I've fallen a lot. But in those moments, he's given me great strength and peace to be able to apologize when I need to, and say I was wrong, and point her to Jesus, because he's the only perfect parent.
That is incredible, because when we're taping this, the Olympics are going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw in the man card going again here, I watched the women's gymnast. I'm an Olympic freak. I watch the Olympic. All of a sudden, I care about every sport that's ever been invented that I would never watch. And then I almost said, but I'm watching the women gymnasts, and they said the first thing they teach a gymnast is how to fall.
Mm.
The first thing they teach them is, when you've messed up, how to fall safe, before they even teach them the routine.
Yeah.
And I thought of that when you said that, because we as parents, we get obsessed. I got a 28, 25, and 21-year-old, and we as parents are taught how to teach them how to be successful. But you are making a great point that we need to teach them how to handle failure as well. And so I want to go to that time, because you said that this quote, someone said to you during that time. So is this going to be the end of this Jesus thing for you? So you're going through this terrible time in your life, and somebody says that to you. Tell me your reaction.
Well, let me rewind the tape just a little bit to tell you that this was actually a family member who I'd been praying for years, I'd been living out my faith in front of, and just really had a desire for them to follow Jesus. And we were on a trip. Our family went on a trip somewhere together, and this was right in the middle of my divorce. And we were sitting around the kitchen table, just kind of talking and visiting. And she just kind of matter-of-factly said, well, I thought when you were going through this divorce, this would be the end of this Jesus thing for you. And the Holy Spirit said this, because I'm not smart enough, but I automatically said, you know what? I think it's just the beginning.
Wow.
And I pushed back from the table, and I left the room. And one of my other family members came, and she was like, you can't say that and leave the room. And but it really was true, is that, as I look back over my life, and when life kind of fell apart, because Rusty, up until then, I'd lived a fairly great life. I mean, not much stuff had happened to me, and everything had kind of worked out. And I'd fallen down and done some wrong things, but for the most part, I'd lived a really great life. And that was huge in that moment. And I think for me, it was just the beginning of really getting to know who Jesus was, and really understanding how he wants a personal relationship with me. And he cares about the things that break my heart, and they break his heart too. And I will say this, for a long time, I thought when people would say, God hates divorce, I heard God hates divorced people.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So in my time as a divorced woman, I have learned that God does hate divorce. And you know what? I hate it too, for very good reasons. But God does not hate divorced people. And I will say this, that God has opened up for me a new ministry to pray for my friends who are married, because I know what's on the other side. I know how much you lose when you go through a divorce. So all of those things just have really developed in my faith, and have come at sweet times when the Lord has just whispered truths to my heart that I needed just in the right moment.
That is incredible. And I for those who may not know, as I finished college coaching, I became ordained, and I do interim pastorships. I basically am transitional for churches. And at this point in time, I'm the interim pastor at a church. And just this past week, and I didn't make this term up that I'm going to tell you this sentence, I've heard it before, but we were talking about King David and how he had risen, and then he became a little bit haughty, prideful, and made some huge mistakes while he was king. And one of the things I've heard a pastor say that I shared with them is that our worst mess can become our greatest message.
Absolutely.
And you can use it. And then King David wrote Psalm 51 directly from his sin with Bathsheba. And it's one of the greatest Psalms. I pray it every day. Created me a clean heart, O Lord, and renew a right spirit within me. And that Psalm that inspires us still today came from a mistake, a failure.
Absolutely.
And what you say, this story, every one of your stories that I've either read on your blog or heard, I can't pick a favorite. It's kind of like the liver mush thing. I can't pick a favorite, the scrambled eggs, whatever. But one of them that really hit me is when the one you wrote about damaged goods and how you're not damaged goods. And you saw, well, I'm going to let you tell it, but you went to the grocery store, and let me set it up for you and see if I've got it right. There or somewhere, and there was Discount Grocery. Maybe I love those. And, there was this can of something, you didn't know what it was, but they were just selling it. Like if you want to, it's like it could be one of those things where you open it up and one of those snakes jumps out at you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But tell me why you picked it and what ended up happening.
Well, so I went in this grocery store, and there was this bin, big thing, and it just had cans with no labels on it at all. So like you said, you didn't know what you were getting, and it said damaged goods. There's a big sign up above it said damaged goods. And I thought, you know what? I feel like that. So I'll pick up a can. I think they were like 5 cents or something. And this one had a big old dent in the side of it. Looked like it'd been thrown and run over, and everything else. And, there again, God speaks to me in everyday things, just puts these ideas in my mind. And when I take time to sit and think about things, and I picked up that can and I was looking at it, and I took it home, and it sat on the counter for a few days. And I said, you know what, I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to open that up and see what it is. And in that moment, God just kind of said, you view yourself as damaged goods. What you've been through, by the world's standards, you have failed. The people that listen to you on the radio, they feel let down, your family's embarrassed. When your private pain is marched across a public stage, it's hard. I would drive an hour and a half to another Walmart to go to the grocery store just because I couldn't bear facing people. It was that bad. I was embarrassed and I was shamed. And so I'm sitting here looking at this can with a big dent in the side of it. And I go to open it up. And when I do, I peel back the top, and there is a big old can of peaches, which is one of my favorite fruits. And God just kind of spoke to me in that moment and said, just because the exterior looks damaged does not mean there aren't sweet gifts still inside. And that has been the story of my life. If I was to tell somebody in one sentence, what my life has been about, the outside looks pretty beat up, and there are failures and there are mistakes. And but that doesn't take away from the sweetness of the relationship that I have with the Lord and the things that He's allowed me to do. Because before all that, I felt like I had to have it all together. I had to have all the answers. I had to be on the Billy Graham radio station and be perfect. And when all that fell through, I even doubted my call to ministry for a while. But that was the point where God just kind of opened up ministry for me. And I had people come up and say, "Oh, you're just like me. You're just like me. You failed." And I was like, well, I've never told anybody that I haven't failed, but there's that perception of putting people on a pedestal. And in that moment, God just said, there are sweet treasures, even in the middle of heartache, even in the middle of the trying times of your life, the places where you feel most damaged. God has a sweet gift, even in the middle of those. And this day, it just happened to be peaches.
Peaches. I bet you would be the one that would go, instead of buying the $2,000 breed dog, you would go to the pound and go get the one.
You got it.
That's incredible. Our little dog that we have here was free. My son brought it home in an apple box and said, like, hey, I think they were getting rid of it. And that thing's been with us 11 years, and we wouldn't trade her for anything in the world. So
you got it.
Another great story. And I appreciate that because there's a lot of people walking around that we don't know that feel like damaged goods. Mm-hmm. And so that leads me to another question. I'm really straying here. Peaches or apples?
Peaches.
Okay. Peaches.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna go strawberries, even though I didn't give you that as one of the, I didn't give you that as one of the choices. So you have we've transitioned, both of us. We talked about this a little bit before we went on, to different stages in our lives, and
Yeah.
we are to the point where we are our parents' parents. My parents will be listening. They watch every week, and that doesn't mean that they're not still my parents. But now I try to look out after them a little more than they look out after me, although they probably still look out after me. But with my wife too, taking care of her parents, you've done the same. Your mom is in assisted living now, and you try to help look after her. You lost your dad not long ago, but one of the stories you tell, and you were coming out of the doctor's office, you were helping him, and y'all were getting to the car. Tell me about that, what the nurse said, and how that's affected your life in ways beyond that.
Yeah, so I'm a big daddy's girl. I was the youngest of three girls, had two older sisters, and really we all three were daddy's girls. He always wanted a boy, and he had three girls. And so I was the biggest tomboy that ever lived. I could mow grass, clean a fish, crawl up under a car with him. I was just always right there with my daddy. And so when he got sick, of course, I wanted to be there for him. And in the days leading up to his passing, we made countless doctor visits, and it always seemed to be bad news. And my dad was this big old man's man, big dude, and he'd always been so strong and healthy.
Yeah.
And he lost a considerable amount of weight, but he's still big guy. And we were leaving the doctor's office one day, and my dad was always wanted to get to the next thing. So he was always in a hurry, and that caused him to fall quite a bit. And so we were leaving the doctor's office that day, and I grabbed his arm to kind of help him out to the car. And the nurse said, "Walk slow." And another one of those moments where God just kind of tapped on my heart. And I learned the benefit of walking slow with my daddy.
Yeah.
Because I think we live life at such a breakneck speed these days.
Absolutely.
We go so fast. We try to get to the next thing. We don't even enjoy what we're doing because we're looking to what's next. And God just kind of said to me, "Carol, walk slow, enjoy every moment, be fully present, put your phone away. Don't worry about Facebook or Instagram or those things that are clamoring for your attention. Walk slow." And you know what? I cherish those moments now, and wish I could even go back and walk even a little bit slower, because those were the times that I was focused on my dad and helping him and making sure he had what he needed. And I think the same is true in my relationship with the Lord, is that if I'll slow down, if I'll walk slow, if I will push pause on the world and the voices that clamor for my attention, he will speak. He will be faithful to speak. I just have to do my part. It's slowing down the pace and listening to what he has to say.
That is incredible. That reminds me of Psalm 46:10.
Yep.
Be still and
Be
know
still,
that I'm God.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it's harder today than it was when you and I were growing up.
Oh, yeah.
All the distractions.
Yeah.
But walk slow. I used to tell my sons when I didn't say walk slow, and I think I probably should have now, but I would say when you walk assertively and with a purpose. Like I never wanted them just slumbering around. I wanted them to, I would say when we walk, they would always accuse me of walking too fast, because when I start walking toward a destination, and I realize now how much I might have missed along the way, at the amusement park, trying to get to I took them all the time to Carowinds, trying to get to the next ride. And I really think that that's great advice for a lot of people. So we're getting ready to wrap. Our time just flies by, and we're getting ready to wrap up. But I want to say a couple things before I go back to being serious and give you the why are you here purpose question. One of them is, I have decided during the course of this interview that in Cleveland County, we have a liver mush festival, and we have a liver mush queen. I don't know if you knew. I'm going to say you are the honorary liver mush queen for this year. I'm going to give you that title, whether they acknowledge it or not. I'm giving it to you.
Do you know I actually have a liver mush T-shirt from your festival down there?
Oh, you've been?
Somebody brought me one. No, I haven't been, but somebody brought me a T-shirt one time. It says "Got Mush" on it.
Yeah, and they've changed the name of it over the years, but I think it was Mutts, Mush, and Music, because you could bring your dog and get the vaccination. You could bring your pets. It was Mutts, Mush, and Music, and then they would have bands, and people would make so much fun of us. And we're having a blast. We don't care if you make fun.
That's right.
The other thing I've decided is that your technological capabilities with your back, yours is perfect, and I'm here. I look like a ghost. I mean, I can't get this lighting right. I've got this background thing. I look like I'm in virtual reality. And there you are. So I just want to give you that title too, because I'm quite the amateur, and there's yours, looks just perfect.
Well, this is just because it's basic, because it's right there and it's not going anywhere. That's
okay.
Very basic. So
well, the next thing is to go back to that question about that I ask every guest that I ever have is the purpose question, the why question. What's your drive? Why did God put Carol Davis on this earth, in your opinion?
Well, I could go with a pat answer of to know him and make him known, but that's really true. I mean, I feel like one of my gifts is joy and encouragement. So that is, of course, part of my DNA and what I want to do. But I love to laugh, and I believe we don't laugh enough in our world. And I want to enjoy my days here and point people to Jesus. That's because I've put my hope in a lot of things through the years, and they have all left me empty. And I found the one true thing that will bring you joy, lasting joy and peace. And so I want everybody to be able, just like liver mush, I want everybody to be able to enjoy liver mush.
Yeah.
But not everybody's there yet. And I understand that. But that's my goal, is to shine the spotlight on the true hero, and that's Jesus and what he's done in my heart and life. And I could tell you stories for days about the ways that he's worked and the miracles that I've seen him do in my own life. Because I'm just a girl from Pleasant Gardens,
Pleasant Gardens.
Exactly. And love my community, love my town. And I really want to see people come to know Jesus. And that's why I get up so early in the morning every day, trying to make people smile, to give them a little hope in the midst of all the bad news, to bring them a little good news, and to say, you know what, this is temporary. Everything here is temporary. We got a home waiting for us, and I want you to go with me. That's my purpose and my joy.
That is awesome. So that allows that purpose allows you to get up at 4 every morning, and allows me to sleep at 4 in the morning. I'm sleeping easily and resting because of that being similar to my purpose, and that's what's getting you up. I'm a few hours after you on that. Wow,
that's all right.
That's incredible, because a lot of times two things happen, and not so much on our stories as glory, but in life, when I just throw stuff out at people once in a while, say, hey, what's your purpose? And you ought to see people just fumble and sweat, and I'll go, hey, I'm not trying to, just, what do you think you're here for? And people don't know. They've never really thought about it. Or they'll answer with their occupation, or they'll read you their resume kind of thing. But I find that people who are committed to the Lord answer in most terms fairly similar to what you did. I would answer that too, and you're right. You said the pat answer, but the pat answer is a great answer to know him and to make him known. Well, I hope that by being here today that people know you better, and we've made the Lord known more too, because I think some of the things that you mentioned today, I mean, for those who are consider hearing a message going to church, like, they may be able to skip Sunday because I don't want them to. So they've already heard 4 messages for the week, and but I hope that what they will do is take your story, be inspired by it, grow near to the Lord because of it. Pop on my favorite radio station, 106.9, either in the app. There's so many different ways to listen. And listen to you, Trisha Kelly, John Wood. There's a bunch of guys. I hate to leave them all out. Listen to the Girl Talk podcast, which you can get on the app. And listen to. And I can't thank you enough. And here's what I want to tell you as you go, that I want to encourage you, because you are inspiring a lot of people that you don't ever even meet, that you don't ever know. You're inspiring them with your humor, your transparency, your genuineness, and your faith, and you're brightening people's day. And I appreciate that. And on behalf of the thousands of other people who would have loved to have the opportunity to tell you that, on behalf of them, I just want to thank you for your obedience.
Well, it's my pleasure, Rusty, and that is all Jesus. Jesus in me, the hope of glory. That's the only reason I can smile. That's the only reason I can have hope. That's the only reason I can even be funny, is because he's put that joy in my heart. So thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed it so much.
And we've enjoyed having you. And for those, again, who are kind of tuning in and cutting us on, cutting us off, I know people listen in segments. Chat in, leave us some comments. It'll be on my page and eventually on Carol's page. And we would both love to hear from you and hear that you're inspired by her story. And we're not done, Carol. I may get you back on again. I'm scared to get you and Trisha on at the same time.
That could be dangerous.
Oh,
it
my
could
goodness,
be.
the directions, the places we could go, as Dr. Seuss would say, but we may end up doing that. But in the meantime, I'll sign off the way I always do and say that if the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, I'll be back again soon for another edition of Our Stories, His Glory.